for sorry about I have over 10 years of experience creating animations for film, television, and also VFX. I've worked with several companies, both home and abroad, creating animated contents, basically VFX, and recently NFT art. So that's like 3D art collections that will be minted and sold in the blockchain. So that's basically what I do. That's me.
All right, that's actually really great to hear. I am also like, I'm sure I wouldn't just be speaking from myself, but there are a couple of us who are still fascinated and I'm curious about the NFT world and have absolutely no idea what goes on with NFT.
Oh, okay. Well, I can give you like a brief rundown of what NFT actually is. Let's just look at it like art generally now. Like the classics, the masterpieces like Mona Lisa and the rest. What makes them valuable is the fact that they can't be replicated. I mean, if you see a photocopy of Mona Lisa now, I mean, anybody would know it's not the real one because there's a way to test. I think there's even this thing they call carbon dating where they test the paint and everything to find out how old it is. So what makes Mona Lisa valuable, what makes it valuable is the fact that it's unique. It's one of a kind. There's no any other one like it. It's the same. So value can be attached to it because it's one of its kind. But whereas digital art now, for instance, a simple copy and paste, you have duplicated it. Like if you have like a picture now of an artwork that you did digitally, if I copy it here and I paste it here, you can't tell which is the original. I mean, I can copy it and paste it into like 100 copies and just give it out. So there's no way to make it valuable. But recently, using the blockchain technology, they found a way to make digital content unique. That is using the blockchain, just like how it's the same technology that makes cryptocurrency work. They found a way to use that blockchain technology to make artwork unique. So the art will be inside the blockchain. It will be encrypted in the blockchain and it will be one of its kind. So even if you have like a digital copy of it, it's easy to verify that that one you have is just a copy because we're not viewing it inside the blockchain. But because we now have this ability to view things, the process of minting this stuff is the process of making this art into the blockchain is called minting. So that's what they call it, minting of NFTs. So nowadays, because you can now mint NFTs inside the blockchain, you can now have unique art pieces. So now I mean, as a digital artist, I can design something now and then I will mint it. Even if I copied it and gave it to you, there's nothing you can do with it because you can't prove that you're the owner. But using the blockchain, if you're the owner, you buy it from using your crypto wallet, you buy that art from me. It can be verified that that is the original one and it's one of a kind because there's a specific metadata and code attached to that particular image. So with the advent of that technology, the whole idea of digital artists making a lot of money from selling unique pieces became a thing. So a lot of people started selling stuff, collections, just like back in the days, there's this stuff, I don't know if you're aware of it, these baseball cards, these collectibles, even now, there are some cards that people sell, just people that are fan of baseball, they sell these cards among themselves. It's a printed card, but it's unique. You can't really fake it. So a lot of people like collecting things that way, it's not really an African culture, but people abroad like collecting things. So we now have an ability to create digital art collections now, where you can sell and buy, and basically that's the idea. And a lot of organizations have taken advantage of this technology to sell their collection to people and maybe give people perks. Like there's this organization that I worked with. They have this yearly event that they do. Like every year, they have this conference. It's a financial conference that they do. So they have these NFT collections now that we created for them, whereby people who own, if you buy these NFTs, you can have access to, okay, you get like free tickets to the event, and also you have access to some certain perks, like personal meeting with some guests and stuff. So that NFT allows you to have that access. It's just something they did to give value, because the same thing with NFT, does just because you hear NFT everywhere, it doesn't just automatically mean you can just make a lot of money with NFT, because it still works with the principle of buying and selling, demand and supply. So there have to be a demand for that particular art for people to buy. Nobody will just buy your art for no reason. I mean, so that's why most people who make a lot of money now are basically celebrities. Because, for instance, your favorite celebrity now, let's say Beyonce now has an NFT collection. Obviously, everybody wants to buy. The same way maybe Kylie Jenner now has like a perfume out and everybody wants to buy it. It's because of the value attached to it, because it's something that was created by that particular celebrity. So that's another thing you have to do, finding ways to create value with around that NFT. So what people do nowadays is to create a community. So some people create like a community around, like you can see maybe like there's a popular video game now that is like a community around that video game. They can now have an NFT collection where they are sure that fans of that video game can buy, or buy and trade within themselves. So that's it. So they have to be value. They have to be like a perceived value. It's not really about the aesthetics of the art, although that also contributes. But there are a lot of NFTs now. Like there's this NFT called CryptoPunk. It's basically like a pixelated art. Like there's nothing really special about it. But I think the cheapest goes for like $2 million. It's because of the value attached to that particular CryptoPunk, because of people who founded it, people who started it. People know them, and there's like a value attached to it. So that's it. And the same way people trade Forex, buy stuff, when the value goes up, they sell it to make profits. People also trade NFTs that way. Yeah, but basically me as an artist, I'm basically just an artist. I create NFT for clients. That's basically what I do. I don't buy and sell, just an artist. And sometimes, if you've noticed, most of these art collections, you see like a particular artwork. Like there's this popular one called Bored Ape. I don't know if you're familiar with Bored Ape. It's like this ape. I don't know, you must have seen it somewhere.
I have.
There's this ape. It's quite popular. Yeah. So that particular one now, Bored Ape, there's like 10,000 different iterations of that Bored Ape. So that's also another thing that you have to do as an artist. That's the stressful part of it, because there's a lot of people that will be buying this Bored Ape. So people can have the same Bored Ape, but it's about the Bored Ape. So you have to now create different iterations of that Bored Ape. You have to make one to have what's it called now? The one will be wearing a captain hat, the other one will be wearing like a military hat, and that one will have like a green colored shirt, and that one blue colored shirt, just random, so that you can have 10,000 unique iterations. And you can now use that to.
All right, then.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, then, Franklin. While the NFT world is still very, very interesting and complicated,
yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people here are expecting animation, so we're just going to move on to animation. Yes. So basically, I would just ask a couple of some questions while more audience begin to fill in the room. So I know that there are three types of animation. You have the traditional, you've got the 2D, you've got the 3D, you've got the motion graphics, and even the stop motion. And this is animation 101. So I wanted to understand which of these areas is animation, what is the basic ground level for like animation 101, where you have 5 types of animations?
Yeah, animations, I don't know, I'm trying to share my screen right now. Is it? Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So basically, we have different kinds of animation. Like you already mentioned some of them. We have the traditional 2D animation. Okay, let me just begin by, explaining what animation is generally. Animation simply means, I think the word animation was gotten from the root word of maybe animals. What makes something, move. Animals move. We move. That's what separates us from other things on earth. Some other things on earth don't move, like the rocks and stuff, but
Yes,
Animation
and
simply means something. Yeah, I mean, animation simply means something that moves. So basically, when an animation started back in the late 19th century, I think, whereby they created this stuff where people use back when projector and this whole camera technology came about. So people found ways to animate flip books. Now I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of flip books. Are you familiar with the concept of a flip book?
no, not really. No, no, not really.
Yeah, I
No.
think let me show you what a flip book is. Okay, this is an example of a flip book. Sorry, are you seeing this? You're seeing this, right?
Yes, we can. It's
Okay, okay.
that's Grumpy Cloud.
Okay, you can see it. So let me just mute it, and it's not about the audio. So this is a flip book. You know, you're
Okay.
familiar with this thing now. This is like an
Yeah.
animation.
Yeah.
See, yeah. So basically, it's like several images drawn and then flipped through. They flipped through the several images drawn. So basically, that's how animation is. Like even the old school Walt Disney and stuff. It's a very
Yes,
stressful process.
I
Yeah.
remember that because I think like a couple of years back, I think we're watching one of those documentaries on how they made a famous cartoon.
Yes.
When it was
Yes.
maybe Teenage Mutant Turtles, and then you saw how they kept moving these things. You know, it was like a real
Yes.
labor of love, and so
It's
that is
very, yeah,
very it
that's
takes a lot of time to make
yeah,
them.
it takes a lot of time. And also one of the difficult aspects of it is that the artists who work on it, because obviously you need labor, you need division of labor to get it done fast. I mean, you can't have one person doing it. All the artists have to have the same art style. Like you have to learn to draw like everybody. Like if you've watched Lion King now, for instance, now, obviously there are several artists that drew it, but if you're familiar with artists, you can always tell if this is this person's artwork. Oh, I can recognize this artwork. Oh, this is this artist. This is this artist. But you can't
Oh
tell
wow!
any difference in Lion King because everybody drew the same. You know, if you are drawing Sinbad in the first 5 minutes, your drawing have to be the same way the guy who is drawing in the next 10 minutes is. It has to be the same way. So that's also another difficult aspect. They have to draw the same because they have to draw. So let me just give you a rundown on the concept of videos now. I mean, we've all taken videos with our phones and stuff. Videos, there's no such thing as a video actually. What you just have is pictures that roll concurrently. That's basically how it is. Even this flip book thing I just showed you is like the basal aspect of animation. That's actually how pictures, when you put your camera on a video mode, what it's actually doing is taking pictures. That's what it's doing. It's taking pictures.
Oh wow!
So a standard video has 24 frames per second. That's what they call it. I'm sure you've heard of that terminology before. FPS, you see, it's something FPS. So the standard video is 24 frames per second, meaning there are 24 pictures that runs in a second. That's what it means. So 24 pictures in a second. So that's your standard video. And most animation, especially Japanese animes use 12 frames per second. That's why you notice they have this kind of jerky movement, like jerky movement. That's because it's not fluid. It's not very fluid because you just have only 24 frames per second. Then your iPhone like from the newer models of iPhone, they run they run on a high frame rate. That's why you're able to do all those slow-mo videos you see. I don't know, I know the slow-mo videos you see on the iPhones. It's because an iPhone captures at 100 or 110 frames per second. Now think about it. Normally 24 frames per second is enough to get you an okay video. Like the video you watch on news, your movies, they're like 24 at best, maybe 29 frames per second. But then iPhone captures over 100 frames per second. That is why when you slow it down, it doesn't jerk because there's still enough frames in between to give it that fluidity. You don't need to understand it well now, but you get to understand it better. So that's the idea of it. And some of all these cameras, like modern cameras, some of them even shoot as high as 200 frames per second. You know, when you're trying to do some videos of maybe an arrow piercing a balloon that has water, and then it's so slow-mo, the way the balloon bursts. You know, I don't know if you've seen some videos like that on YouTube. Yeah, it's because they were shot at a high frame rate. That's what they call it, a high frame rate. But your standard animation now is 24 frames per second. Meaning this grumpy stuff now, if it was animated in traditional sense, they are like 24. This is obviously his hand is flipping it very slowly, so it's not going to be that good. But if it was like a traditional method, it'll be like 24. So you see that I think this is like maybe 10 frames a second, or maybe 4 or 5 frames per second. That's why it's not so fluid. You understand? Like it's not so fluid. But what they did back in the day was to use photography to capture each of those frames. So that's what they do. Let me show you guys a video of one of those old school animations. It's not video. I couldn't get a clear video, but this is just, I think this is Mickey Mouse, Disney. This is the guys that work on it. Yeah. So see what he's doing. And then there's what they call onion skinning. Onion skinning is what he's doing right now. Onion skinning is whereby you use a tracing paper, like a transparent paper. When you use that transparent paper, you have your main drawing behind. And let's say, for instance, now, instead of having to, what you want to just animate is the ear moving up or the mouth shifting. You don't have to draw the whole body again. So you use that transparent paper so that you can trace the other parts of the body that will be the same with the next frame. And then just change only the ear. It's just a way of saving time. I don't know if you understand what I'm talking about right now. Do you understand?
I do. But
okay,
yeah, so I think we have enough people joining us, so you could just help us with the general layout of your presentation, and I would obviously continue to ask you more questions after.
Okay. All right. So I've already started, I've already started. I'm just giving you guys a rundown of animation, and then we'll go into animation, types of animation and stuff. So the second, so over the years, animation kept improving. You understand? So even during the time of Lion King and Cinderella and stuff, we still they still use the same traditional drawing for Lion King and Cinderella and stuff. They still use the same, drawing frame by frame, and stuff. But then I think in 1994, the first featured 3D movie, 3D film was Toy Story. That was by Pixar. Pixar came up with it. That was when they started doing 3D. That's when, now I'm talking about the second kind of animation, which is 3D. I think we'll talk about that this finally, because that's basically what I do, and that is what I'm going to show you. We're actually going to go through a process of animating what is called a walk cycle. A walk cycle is simply a step, like walking, and we're going to be animating this particular character. If any of you have like a PC, you can follow along. I can give you a link to download this character in 3D, and also this software that I use. It's easy and it's free. It's a free software. It's an open source software.
All right, Franklin, great if you could drop it on the chat room if you have time.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
Thank you so much.
All right, I'll do that. Sorry, this Zoom is quite. Okay, all right, I'll do that as well. I'll do that now. Okay. Okay, so this is the 2D type of the first type of animation, which is 2D. It's the drawing, you draw, and I've explained the concept of frame by frame animation, so you understand how videos work generally. Meaning everything is done by frame. So your drawing, your animation should change frame by frame, and a standard video is 24 frames per second, meaning 24 pictures runs in a second. So that's how it goes. Then second kind.
I think I just understood what you meant with the Japanese mangas.
Yeah.
So that's when they are talking, you don't actually see their mouths moving or them moving.
Yes.
That's a 2D type of animation.
Yes, it's 2D, and they animate at 12 frames per second. 12.
Okay, so a lot of the conversation goes on, but then they don't move as much.
Yes, they don't move. I think they're just trying to save time, because some of all those Japanese studios don't have much budget, and they have a ton of episodes. So you may just have like 2 or 3 guys working on it. You get. So sometimes now when, like, as I'm talking now, you can see my head is moving. You know, I'm not just stationary. But it's gonna be so stressful drawing different heads for different frames. So that's why you see some of those Japanese anime. Maybe the guy is just stiff and only his mouth is moving. You know, they can just keep changing the mouths. You know, they have different phonemes. They have different shapes for different phonemes of the voice. Like maybe when I would say oh or ah, they drew like different shapes, and then they use different layers to, you know. So the difference between modern 2D animation and old school 2D animation is that old school 2D animation, they draw on paper, and then they use cameras to take those pictures. Whereas modern day 2D animation actually have a software like Photoshop, a layer-based software. So even that tracing you are doing now, that onion skinning, that's what they call it. You don't need to do it because you already have like what do they call it now? A software that'll help you with that. I actually forgot to bring my drawing tablet pen. I wanted to show you how modern animations are made. I don't know if you guys are familiar with drawing tablets. It's like a pen that has like a screen. I think even iPad, you know, your normal light pen is basically the same technology, like stylus. So it gives you dexterity because you can't draw with mouse. You know, you're using your fist to hold your mouse. You can't draw with your mouse. There's not enough dexterity. Although there's some crazy people who do it. I've seen a guy who challenged himself to draw with mouse. It was crazy. So these drawings, modern 2D animations, they use drawing tablets to draw. Even 3D, but we'll get there. They use drawing tablets to draw. So that is 2D animation. I finished covering 2D animation. That's basically how 2D animation is done. It's basically drawings frame by frame. And then you mentioned stop motion. Then we're going to go into stop motion now. That's another kind of animation. So the first kind of animation is the traditional 2D animation, the modern 2D animation, and the stop motion. That's what I'm doing now. That's what I'm explaining to you now. Okay, stop motion animation is actually it's like torture to me. I don't know why people do it, but it's crazy because it's, okay, let me show you how crazy stop motion is. So stop motion is actually like clay. They use like clay models. So just imagine now, you see this mouse now, you can see on my screen, these 4 mouse now. Imagine if I model them with clay. Now I just model them, put the hearts and everything. And then to animate them, I just put a camera somewhere on a tripod, and then I'm moving the bodies frame by frame because it's clay. So clay is malleable. Sometimes they use some kind of plastic material too that's very non-destructive material. So they kind of pose the characters, like they pose the characters like here and here, and then they'll take a picture again, they'll pose it again, they'll take another picture, they'll pose it, and then they'll do like that.
That's how they make Teenage Mutant Turtles. I think that's how they made Teenage Mutant Turtles.
Teenage Mutant Turtles. Is that what
yes,
I
think that's how,
yeah. I think obviously I'm sure they've done a stop motion version of those as well. Now let me show you. There's this movie that came out in 2005 called Box Straws. Yeah, Box Straws is like one of my best what do you call it? One of my best stop motion animation. There's also this old one, Chicken Run. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Chicken Run. Chicken Run is quite old.
I've heard the name, but I'm surprised it's actually a cartoon.
Okay, let me show you Box Straws now. Let me show you. This is Box Straws. Oh, sorry, not that one. Box Straws. Okay, now I'm going to play the audio of this so that you can hear the conversation of these guys. I think okay, after these guys made this animation, they were so I think they were so impressed with themselves. I think this is showing off, if you ask me. They were so impressed with themselves that they decided to create this particular video of the characters they animated talking about what is going on. So it's quite crazy. Let me play it. Let me unmute my screen. Okay.
Franklin, we can't hear them.
Oh, you can. Okay, you can hear them. Oh my God, I don't know what's going on. Okay, sorry. Okay, what do I do now? Can you hear it now?
And there are giants looking down.
Yeah.
Can you hear now?
We move, it's patchy.
Did you hear it that time?
Yes,
Hello?
I heard it just now. Yes, you can. Yes.
You heard it that time?
Yes.
Okay, let me do what I did that time. So let me start from the beginning.
Keeping the streets clean.
Free from evil.
Yeah.
You ever think about the universe, Mr. Trout? What if our world is just like a tiny speck?
A tiny little speck.
And there are giants looking down on us.
And every time we move,
It's actually them moving us.
seems a bit tedious.
Like that. Just there, me blinking. That would have taken them a day.
Me moving my arm. 500 men.
I mean, none of them are going home. They're having to do this bit. And now this bit. And this bit. I mean, this should stop.
I think it throws up notions of free will.
Yes. So did you see that? Did
Yeah.
you hear that conversation?
Yes, totally. That was I like I said, I think I've seen a couple of some documentaries where they showed how they did a rundown of like the cartoons, because I'm a major animation head myself, you know, like
Okay.
cartoons.
Yeah. So you can see how stressful it is. These guys now are made of clay or something, or some kind of plastic material, and these guys just pose them, you know, and then they are in between frames. You get like 24
Yeah.
frames per second. There's what they call in between. We'll get there. They call it interpolation. That's like, sorry, in between poses, like key poses,
Okay.
like the
Yeah.
interpolation from one pose to another. Like for instance, now, if I'm gonna put my hands on my head, you know, my hand on my head is a key pose. I have to pose it that way, and then my hands down, it's another pose. That in between stuff to get to the head, you know, you have to account for that as well in order for it to be fluid.
Yeah.
So this
Actually,
stop motion.
I
Yeah.
think that's a key. I think that's a key part of animation, because it helps them feel like it's not just paper, you know, like the object.
Yes. It's
And I
actually
did-
very, yeah.
Yes, I did watch Box Trolls. I did watch this a little bit of it when I was a child, so I can
Okay.
remember.
Yeah. So that's it's crazy how these guys do this thing. But I think most of these guys who work on stop motion are actually very passionate about it. So there's actually no need for this because we have 3D now. You don't need to. I think the idea of stop motion actually came about early in the filmmaking industry, where we have animatronics. If you've watched some of those old Star Wars movies, before the advent of CGI, before we had computer graphics and everything, some of your monsters or your Yoda from Star Wars were actually stop motion elements. That's like real puppets that were posed frame by frame, you know. That's how monsters were created before in movies. Like you have like a monster coming, in a movie, you have to actually have an actual monster that have movable joints, and then you have to pose them, you know, frame by frame, so that it helps. I think there's this old movie, it's called A Clash of the Titan. There's this old Clash of the Titan where there was like this very funny scene where skeletons were chasing someone. It's the same thing they use. Like they actually had this skeleton that has screws in the body that you could, you know, pose them, you know, just like your doll. Like I think there's this fashion doll people use, you know.
Okay, but do you think that's what they used for King Kong when it came out?
Yeah, the old King Kong, probably. I'm sure the
Mm.
old King Kong, but the modern day ones now, we now have advanced 3D animation. So that's what I actually do now. So in 1994, although there've been 3D animations before in some movies have actually featured some aspects, some things in 3D, just to, you know, when the whole technology started coming about, but it was quite crazy. But the first feature stretch movie was Toy Story 1, and it was done by Pixar. Pixar actually have their own software. Like, you know, we all have different softwares we use for 3D and everything, but if you wanted to work in Pixar now, they have like their own stuff because they're always innovating and, you know, pushing things to the next level. So this is stop motion. I think I have another footage of stop motion, something about clay motion or something. Yeah, I think this is early man. It's quite this animation is like 3 or 4 years ago. You can actually tell how you can actually see that it's actually dolls and puppets and stuff, you know, tiny miniatures. Yeah, they call them miniatures. And then the stop motion feel is actually something some people actually like now because there's a feel to it. There's what they call depth of field. I don't know if you're familiar with depth of field. Is anyone familiar with depth of field? Like depth of field. That's like when you take a picture and the background is blurry. Hello? You guys are following me, right? Okay. Yeah. The depth of field is like when you take a picture and then the focus is close by, and then your background behind is blurry. Like some of all these very cool cameras, you know, they do that stuff. So when you're taking pictures of miniatures, it has a very shallow depth of field. Like if I take a picture of stuff on my table, for instance, now, if I take a picture of like my phone charger, my phone and everything, the depth of field is much because it's small. So the angle of your lens have to really do a lot of work in trying to focus on it. The same thing with your eyes, for instance, now. If you were to look at your keyboard now, you look at the letter M on your keyboard, you'll find that other things around will be blurry. Your angle of vision becomes very blurry around because you're looking at something very small. So there's that feel that stop motion has that lets you know that this thing is actually small. I think box straws don't really have that feel because those guys they were quite advanced. But this Chicken Run and the rest had that feel. So people like that stylized feel. So sometimes you see some people using 3D to simulate stop motion, even though it's not really stop motion, it's 3D, but they
just to give it that element. I think some people like it because it's traditional, it's old.
Yes, it's traditional, it's old. Like for instance, let me give you a very good example of 3D movies that are made to look like stop motion. Have you watched any of the Lego movies? There's this Lego movies, Lego Batman, Lego.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. You see, because the Legos are actually toys, you know, these miniatures, you know, you can see that when they zoom the character, you can see everywhere is blurry, you know, it feels like a toy. It feels like, you know, the feeling is actually to make you feel like this is your toy, you know, you're just playing with your toys. That's actually that feeling. So it's a stylized feeling that people tend to go for because of.
And I think that what's the name? I think Wreck-It Ralph also gave me that feeling of being stuck in a game.
Yes, exactly. Yes, Wreck-It Ralph. So that's basically it. So now we move to 3D animation. Now 3D animation is it's like the main animation right now. It's like the rock star of all animation because using 3D technology, they found a way to you know, speed up the whole process. Yeah.
Sorry, I am sorry that I've been a bit disruptive. I'm just very fascinated and I have all these questions. But I think I could be raising my hand next time, so you could just, if you see.
It's okay. You can.
All right then. I was gonna ask you, is Minions also part of those ones, and like Peppa Pig, because I think they have a little bit of policies.
Yeah, Peppa Pig is 2D because they're modern day 2Ds now. 2D is not extinct. There's still a lot of 2D animation, and there's also this movie called Klaus. I don't know if you've seen Klaus.
I think yes, I have.
It looks a lot like 3D, but it's 2D. In fact, I was arguing with a friend recently.
Oh yeah.
Let me show you Klaus. Let me Google
it as well, right?
You said
the Book of Life.
Book of Life. Yeah. Yes, the one with the what do they call it now? With the Mexican.
Yeah, so they look like the wooden cuts.
Yes, this is Klaus now. Klaus is 2D, but it looks a lot like 3D. You could feel the depth. It has depth to it. You can see the hair. You can see this hair. It feels like it's an actual thing, and it doesn't feel flat yet.
Yeah,
and they are very subtle with the outlines, because that's another thing that makes you know for sure that something is 2D. Is the drawing outlines. Like the art, you have those dark lines around the art, so they're very subtle with the outline. So it doesn't feel like 2D. So,
okay.
Yeah. So but okay.
No, you can go on.
Yeah. Okay. You sure? You have something to say? You can say it.
I just wanted to draw a couple of them, and then you just let me know which one is a 2D and which one is a 3D.
Okay, sure.
So, I think How to Slay Your Dragon is a 3D.
Yeah, sure. It's 3D. How to Slay Your Dragon.
So How to Slay Your Dragon. Well, I think that also Secret Lives of Pets is also a 3D.
Yes, it's 3D. It's
all right.
3D.
Big Hero 6.
Hero 6 is 3D. Big Hero
Oh, wow.
6 is 3D.
But I feel that their hair has a little bit of like the hair outline made me think that they were 2Ds.
Okay, now let me give you an example of something called there's something called NPR in 3D. NPR stands for non-photorealistic rendering. It's a method. It's also another stylized method that people use to create stuff in 3D while making it look like 2D. Are you familiar with Into the Spider-Verse?
No, I haven't seen that one. No.
Into the Spider-Verse was a Spider-Man animation that came out like 3 years ago. It's 3D, but it looks 2D. Let me show you like a screenshot of it. Into the Spider-Verse. Yeah. So this is it. This is some clips from it. Okay, you can't really see much here. Okay, this is it. Yeah. You see this guy right now. It looks 2D. It looks drawn. It looks like he was drawn. Are you able to see this stuff right now?
Is it the boy with the afro?
The boy with what?
No, the one that looks like a
Yeah,
pig.
the boy with the black guy Spider-Man, like Miles Morales. That's his name.
Okay.
Is a black Spider-Man. Let me just play like a clip of it so you see Miles Morales. Oh, sorry. Into Spider-Verse. Okay. Okay, this is like a trailer. Sorry, YouTube and ads.
They have to make money somehow, don't they?
Is that what did you say?
I said they have to make money somehow, don't they?
Yeah, they have to actually. I mean, they're just giving us all this stuff for free. So this is Into the Spider-Verse. If you pause it now, it looks drawn. It looks 2D, but it's 3D because the camera can actually turn around it for you to see. Okay, now let me even show you a project I just recently concluded for a client. Let me show you. I used the same NPR, which is non-photorealistic render, because one thing about 3D, what makes you know, the first thing that makes you know that something is 3D when you look at it is because it's photorealistic, meaning it looks real. Those cartoons you mentioned, Big Hero 6, aside from the characters that are obviously made to be, stylized and cartoony, the cars, the vehicles, the houses, the streets, they look real. They don't look drawn. They feel real. You see light bouncing off of them. You see shadows and everything. They feel real. That's the first thing you need to know about 3D animation, is the realism of it.
Okay.
So, first, let me even show you some of my 3D characters in a way to show you like realism, the level of realism. Like for instance, some of all these Disney movies like Thanos. You see Thanos, obviously Thanos is not a real person. It's not somebody that they painted the costume. It's actually a 3D character. So that's how real 3D, the level of 3D has gone. So you can see some of my, this is like an African warrior NFT that I did. So there's like 500 iterations of this. This is 3D. It's just some of them. So
Wow.
it's 3D, it has depth, it feels real.
Like Assassin's Creed kind of level.
Yes, you got that right. Yeah, so that's it. And there's also some before I go into the next step, I'll actually play, because this NFTs I actually created like a trailer for the NFT collection, because it was something I partnered with a friend. So we've not launched out yet, but I just finished the trailer. So there'll be a trailer just to get people involved in it. But now let me go and show you a non-photorealistic 3D render that I created. It's a 3D stuff that looks 2D. Where is it? Images. Sorry. Okay, this one. Let's wait for it to load a little bit. So 3D feels real. That is why it's 3D. It's three-dimensional. You can turn it around, you can spin it. It feels, this is a 3D character, for instance. This is a 3D character. Can you see what makes it 3D? It's not a drawing, it's an actual thing. Yeah. And 3D characters are, 3D characters are actually sculpted the way you sculpt things traditionally. You actually sculpt them in your computer. So that is where the drawing tablet comes into play now. Having your drawing tablets allows you to sculpt things, sculpt, you know. So that is it, 3D. Let me just give you like a quick general. Okay. Spare. Don't worry, we'll go through the process of sculpting character. Sorry, not sculpting, animating. And I will explain step by step. Because animation is quite vast, but don't feel, if you actually want to go into this, no matter how old you are, you can actually jump on it. Like I was doing some, I have this tutorial class that I'm going to start soon, but I already have some people that I'm teaching. I was like, you guys are lucky nowadays. We have so much technology. Technology has helped this process so much. Back in the days, it was so difficult getting stuff done. Nowadays, we have AI. AI helps speed up some aspects of 3D. Like, let me give you an example of an aspect that's automated now. There's this stuff called rigging. It's something that 3D artists hate. Like a 3D artist, if you just tell them rig this character, oh my God. Most characters don't like rigging. And the guys who know how to rig get paid a lot. Rigging is actually assigning bones to, because just think of 3D as stop motion, but a digital version of stop motion, because you're actually still posing the hands. So in order to pose hands, you have to assign like a skeleton into those bones. Now you have to put like a skull, put a neck bone, put a backbone, put a shoulder bone, the clavicle, everything. So that, and then the body of these 3D models will be binded to those bones, so that when you move the bone of the arm, the body moves with it. And that seems like an easy process, right? But the hardest part is the deformations, because if I move my hands now, I flex my muscles right now, my bones distort and deform my biceps. So that deformation now is the issue. If you don't deform well, it will look very, very fake. So those bones you assign to the character, they need to be able to deform each part of the body appropriately. They need to deform a different degree of deformation, different intensity of deformation. For instance, now I lift my leg up, my stomach, everything has to just go and obey, just like how it is right naturally. So that is a very difficult thing, because you have to do what they call weight painting. Weight painting now is selecting some parts of the body and assigning them some specific level of deformations, and it's quite complex. But nowadays, there's like an automated method. You just have a character sculpted, and then you just rig, and ta-da, just wait like a few seconds, and then it's rigged. Everything is done for you. Yeah. So
Franklin, we have an interesting question from Colin in the chat group. He said, "Hi Franklin.
Yes.
I don't know if you've been, but Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers looks like it's combined all of the forms of animation. Plus
which animation is that?
Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. The Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers.
I don't know. Spell it from, let me Google it. Chip.
Okay, so it's CHIP.
And Dale.
Yes.
Oh, Rescue Rangers. Let me see. I don't know this animation, but yes, it's possible. People combine stuff. Yeah, I can see. Yeah, I see this chipmunk is 2D. This chipmunk is 2D, and this chipmunk is 3D. Wow, that is amazing. They do it. They do a lot of things. Like even some of all these 3D animation have 2D backgrounds. Some of them they use 2D flat background that you cannot really interact with. I need to check out this movie. It looks quite good. So this is like chipmunks. Some of them are 3D and some of them are 2D. Wow, this is
And then he also said that he said plus it was actually live action too. So he said, what do you think of that, and how stressful/difficult do you think it must have been to make?
Okay,
that's a very interesting question.
Yeah, it's there's this thing called division of labor. We know division of labor. Some things are stressful, but then when you have like a lot of budget, like some of these, I don't know which studio worked on this, Disney, they have money. You know, they can hire. But although recently, a lot of Disney, a lot of Disney artists, Disney has a problem with artists right now. A lot of Disney artists are resigning. Actually, it's
Oh
a
wow.
problem. Yeah, it's a problem. People are complaining unfair working hours, low pay. You know, issues there and here and there because Disney, and they say Disney also give unrealistic deadlines. Like and it has been affecting some of their movies. Although unless you have a trained eye, you won't notice. Like Black Panther movie. I actually watched the video where they interviewed the guy that he worked on it. He was a director of photography. No, he was like the VFX supervisor. He was complaining about how, because there's this scene in the Black Panther movie, you will not notice it. The last scene where T'Challa fought his brother and his cousin, his brother. I don't know, his guy. I don't know. I can't remember whether it was his brother anymore.
I think it was his cousin and his yeah, I think it was his cousin.
Yeah,
Michael
his cousin.
character.
Yeah, the fight scene was poor. It felt like a PS2 game. It didn't feel real. And then from the interview, they talked about how the studio, because Disney also outsource these things to different studios. So when a Disney is doing a movie like this, they outsource different aspects. Like there's this company called Weta Digital. Weta Digital is like the best 3D/VFX company in the world because any single movie that is worth mentioning, they've worked on it. That's how good they are. And they are innovative and they always push the technology to the next level. You remember the Avatar movie that was like the highest grossing movie for a long time before Avengers? It was Weta Digital that worked on it. Even all the Avengers, all the Thanos, everybody, it's basically just Weta Digital. Even the King Kong, the modern day King Kong, they came up with the technology for creating realistic 4. And they also used it in what's this movie? This movie where the apes went crazy. Planet of the Apes. You know, the 4. There's this realism to the 4. They use this technology. And also as far back as Lord of the Rings, where that was the first time they actually digitally duplicated soldiers. Like back in the days, if you want to do a war film, you have to gather plenty of people and then tell them to be running and clashing. But nowadays, you can just simulate a crowd. There's like crowd simulation. These are some of the technologies that Weta Digital actually came up with. So it's a very big company. So Disney always outsourced some of their jobs. So this particular studio, they said they had only 1 month to work on that fight scene, you know, and so they were rushing it. So that's why it was poor. But you may not be able to tell because most people won't tell. People will still appreciate it, but critics will be able to tell. And filmmakers care a lot about critics' opinion. Some critics have succeeded in ruining movies, you know.
Yeah, it makes and breaks the movie. Yes, that's true.
Yes. So this particular scene was not so. It felt kind of. The scene was very unrealistic. It felt like as if you were watching a cutscene from a video game, you know. Like maybe you played a video game and
well,
then
for me, in my
experience,
it feels like an animated version of a Nigerian movie where like there's something wrong, because I think that always happens in Nigerian films.
Yes, actually. So most people don't know that things go wrong too in foreign movies. A lot, like errors, like, you know, but you have to have like the error is so subtle.
Yeah, but
you wonder why they're
Game of Thrones was pretty iconic in the error game, the last season.
Yes, I think there was this scene where a guy was trying to remove his sword and it was not working. I think there was that scene
on the table.
Yeah, they digitally removed that now. The one, if you try to stream it on HBO again, you can't find it. They've removed that stuff. Yeah, and also there was this Pirates of the Caribbean. There was this time Jack Sparrow was wearing a band that had Adidas logo on it. So that was
that's crazy.
Anachronistic. It's not supposed to be there. And then the movie, Detroit, that's the Trojan Horse movie. Yeah, there was a scene. Yeah, there was a scene where Hercules was standing, and then there was a plane passing overhead, like a tiny plane, but it was a plane. You know, it didn't look like a bird, but it was a plane. A plane is not supposed to be there.
Sorry, watch that one. I just saw it. That's crazy.
Yeah. So these issues come from not having enough budget and time to work on stuff. The suits, like I always have that. I have that issue as well with my clients. They always want something done yesterday, but then some of the more foreign clients are more lenient. You know, some of them are more understanding. You know, it's always Nigerians that always They want you to perform magic, and they're not even giving you enough money. It's just the way it is. So, so to answer that question, how difficult is it to work on it? It depends on the studio, on the strength of the studio, and technical wise, there's also, I think, let me explain that, because I think the question, you're actually trying to find out if it's a difficult thing, if it's something that happens easily, you know, okay, yeah, we're combining 2D and 3D together and live action is going to be, it's actually quite technical. You know, it's actually quite technical because you have to do something called compositing. I don't know if you've heard of that term before. Compositing is basically just putting things together. It just means what the word means, composite things together. Yeah.
I have a question at this point, so sorry.
Okay. Yeah, it's okay. I'm here.
So, well, so despite the fact that I know a little about animation, I realized that it's the team that actually makes a very good, you know, cartoon. Yes, but then in the filmic sense, after everybody has done their scenes, the director has done his part, then the producer comes in, and then when the producer comes in, he now, like, you know, fixes all the errors, put all of them together. So what I want to know now is that in the you know, in animation sense, like especially with this type of example, and that's why I thought about it in the first place, where you have someone doing 2D, you have someone doing slow motion, traditional 3D. So whose job is it now to, you know, put everything together and make sure that this is a composition, you said?
Yes.
Comes together. Like, who is there somebody who, like, can be hired to do all of this things?
Yeah, there's like a team of compositors. They call them compositors, actually. You can call them whatever, but they call them compositors most of the time. And they all have a supervisor. They all have a supervisor. So the supervisor supervises the work, checks it to see if they are doing it right based on his own idea. Then he now takes it to the director, and the director will now look at it. Okay, change this or change that, you know. And it's a very stressful work. The compositing now, it's basically marrying all those scenes together. Now, for instance, now, if I wanted to shoot a VFX now, if I wanted to shoot like me now, this is stop motion, this is live action because I'm here, and I want to put a cartoon character beside me now. Let's say I want to put a 3D character first beside me that is not real. I have to composite that 3D character into this scene. One of the things I have to do in trying to composite it is, number one, the lighting. The lighting has to match. In your 3D application now, you can see my screen. Let me go to the rendered view. Let me go here and turn, sorry. Let me, what's going on here? Sorry. Okay. This is a cube now. You can see this cube. And let me add a point light. Sorry, just give me a second. Use this screen so that we can see very well. Okay. View it. See, you can see this stuff now. If I move it, okay, wait, hold on a second. Let me use a different render engine. Real-time render engine is quite crazy. Cycles. Okay. Okay, now, this is a light now. This is a light source. If I reduce, sorry. This is what they call ray tracing. Is rendering. It's a concept. It's a process of the computer calculating what you are doing. You can see it's becoming clearer slowly. Yeah, it's so you can see that there's a light in this scene. Now, if I move this light here, you can see the light is farther. I don't know that you're able to see what's going on here. Hello? Yeah, you're seeing it. You see when I
When I
move the light further, the scene becomes kind of darker, and then I bring it closer. You can see this is basically how lighting works in 3D space. So you have like light, and if I take the light away altogether, everywhere is kind of bland and crazy. So there's a digital light now. So the first thing you have to do is to make sure that the lighting of your 3D character matches the lighting of the environment. That's the first thing that will help in marrying the scenes together. That will help it to look real. Like I put like Mickey Mouse beside me now, a 3D Mickey Mouse. You're able to tell it's fake. I mean, it's not even really working. It just look like a poor Photoshop grafting, you get. But the way to make it real is compositing now. Lighting, matching the lighting is one of the first steps in compositing. For instance, now where I am now, I'm in a place where there's kind of like low light and everything. I have to find a way to combine my lamps to make it match. Another thing they do is what they call HDR. There's what they call HDR. HDR means high dynamic range. HDRI, high dynamic range imagery. That's where people use a 3D, a picture, a panoramic, this panorama image you take your photo now with your phones. Now, in order to make the lighting in the CG to work well, instead of having to stress yourself trying to match all the lighting here and simulating it in 3D, you can just do what they call HDR, where you take like a 360 image of this place. And then you take that image and put that image into your 3D scene and use that image to wrap your 3D scene. Now project light through that image and then it will look real. Let me show you this stuff I did for a client. I showed you these because this is a beach, a girl, it's a girl in the beach. It's an NFT that I did recently. They were like, I did like 1,000 of this. Let me just show you some of them. So you just see, this, you have like different, each of them are different, Me looking at this at first glance, if I show you the rendered view, let's wait for it to render a little bit, sorry. It looks 2D because it looks cartoony, it's an anime, looks 2D, you can see. I used what they call the non-photorealistic 3D rendering. That's why it looks 2D. You can see it looks 2D, but it is not 2D. It is 3D. The same with that Spider-Verse I showed you with the Spider-Man guy. It's a 3D animation that is made to look like a 2D. So that's what this is, because you can see if I turn the camera, you can see, you can move around it. You can't do that with 2D because 2D is just a drawing. That's what it is. Now, I used that HDRI stuff to light the scene. I don't know if you can see a real image of a beach.
Yes, I can.
Yeah, you can see the real image of it. I use that real image so that lighting will work well. So even naturally, you can decide to just use HDRI, even if you are not trying to composite a 3D asset into a real life footage. It's just a way of getting good lighting, having to stress myself. I will not have to stress myself trying to simulate how the light in the beach is, the intensity of the sun, the blah, 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 blah. I just use a HDR image. Now, let me show you a website where people download HDRI images. There's a website called Holy Heaven. Let me just show you so you understand what's going on. HDRIs. Got it. So this site, you can browse different HDRIs. You can see, I think I use one of these here. If you see, this is the image. It's an image that is right. If you look towards the bottom part of the image, you can see it's kind of smeared, it's kind of stretched. It's because it's made in such a way that it can wrap around your scene.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. So if I wrap this thing around my scene now, I don't need, if I wrap this, okay, for instance, now let's go back to the cube now that we created. Now let's use a HDRI. Let's download this particular HDRI now. Not 4K, 2K is okay. Let's download this particular one. Okay. I think I should have an HDRI on my system. I don't need to use this particular one, but it's downloading. So what I just do, I just go to the world setting. I'll just look for environment texture. It became pink because my 3D software, anytime something is missing, it shows you pink, because pink is like an odd color. So it alerts you into, so that you know that something is missing somewhere.
Okay, I mean, it's typically red, but this is interesting too.
What did you say? Sorry.
I said it's interesting because it's typically red that makes you go at alert, but this is nice as well.
Yeah, yeah. Pink. Something could be red in your scene, I guess. But pink, I guess maybe that's why they use. I don't know. So these are HDR images now. Let me apply this one now to the scene. You can see now, my cube now feels like it's outdoor. I'm no more stressing with that other lighting I was using. You can see. Can you see?
Yes, wow. This is wow.
Yeah, so I used that HDR image that I downloaded to light my cube. So I could just turn off the environment. If I want to add another environment, let's say for instance now, I only wanted to use the light. I don't need the environment. I can just turn it off. I can turn it off. And then it still feels like it's there, but you don't see the environment now. I can add another background. I can add buildings here, you know. And basically, this is how.
Wow. So I was even going to
HDR.
ask you, so that means that for movies where they have like animals or they do a mixture of both, they just have a bunch of compositors as well, just helping.
Yes. Yeah, the compositors will just make sure. And again, shadows. When you talk about light, you also have to talk about shadows. If you want a Mickey Mouse to be on my table right now, it will feel fake if it does not have a shadow also casting on my table. So you have to make sure that 3D character projects a shadow. Even if there's no shadow, the compositor will apply a shadow, like a digital shadow, on my table. So that's the idea of the composition. So to answer the question that was asked before, yes, it is quite difficult to do all that because it's challenging, because you're not just focusing on one thing. If you're focusing on 2D, fine, you're just doing 2D. If you're focusing on 3D, fine, you're just doing 3D. If you're focusing on stop motion or live action, you're just using your camera and doing your camera work. We have to join everything together, and then that's when you have to marry it. And also another challenge is camera movement, especially when their camera movement is more difficult. Because for instance now, if you video me sitting down here with a 3D character, and then the camera is stationary, it's easy. I mean, it's easy to do that. But if the camera pans and turns around me, now it's challenging, because in the 3D application, I have to make sure that the camera movement I used in my 3D application moves exactly the same way as the camera that I use in real life. That's where we have what they call motion control rig. The motion control rig is actually a robot camera. It's a robot camera that remembers its movements. You know, it's a camera that you put on it like a robot or something. I'm sure you've seen some of those things in movies. You program it to move like this and turn like this and do like this. So once you do that, and then it remembers that movement. That movement can be saved. And then that movement can now be applied to the camera on your 3D application as well, so that it moves the same way. So that when you're marrying the two scenes together in your compositing software, you will not have an issue where something is flying up and down because the camera that was used is different from your own camera.
This makes me have like even two more questions. I want to add to the question.
Okay. Ask the question.
When he said he asked how long does it take, or like how difficult is it to make this? So I now thought about it. So typically when you're having this type of project, what's the minimal, like the average time span you think it's going to take to have it done? 3 months, 6 months?
Okay, let me show you an animation that I did, the trailer that I was talking about that I did. It took me 4 months to do this. And I showed a client of mine, an American guy. You know, we basically suffer ourselves here in Nigeria, you know. Some things that the guy asked, it was like, what was the strength of the team that worked on this? That's what he asked me. And I was like, it was just me. And I was like, really? So he actually thought a lot of people worked on it, and he's trying to find out how big it was, the amount of people. I told him I did it it was just 4 months. So I was like, okay, what was the strength of the team that worked on it? I was like, it was just me. I was the only one that did it, and he was amazed. In Nigeria, we have a culture of suffering ourselves, and it helps. It allows us to succeed when we find ourselves in that kind of environment, because we're already used to hardship here. So, so let me show you the video now. The audio is quite poor, but I'll still play the audio out for you.
All right. Oh, wow. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, so
Amazing. And
that
this
is
was
it. Yeah, so this actually took me 4 months to make, but it all depends. It depends on a lot of things. Like, for instance, now, if you already have characters on ground, if you didn't have to make those characters from scratch, cut back on time. If you had people taking care of this particular aspect, you could also cut down. At the end of the day, it all boils down to budget. Okay, now let me give you an example of a movie. I don't know if you've seen this movie, Sonic, the Sonic Hedgehog movie.
Yes, I mean, that was like almost 15 years ago.
No. That's those are cartoons. I'm talking about something that happened
the
like
movie.
Yeah,
The movie.
Sonic Hedgehog. Let me show you.
No, I haven't.
Let me show you a clip of it. Sonic. Yeah, I know you know Sonic. Sonic the game, the cartoons, the stuff.
Yeah, that's what came to my head. Oh wow.
Sonic movie.
All right, so while you're searching for it, let me just revisit the chat and throw out some of the questions.
Okay.
We have a question from Joy. She said, I don't know if this was asked already, but is there a checklist for starting as a baby animator?
Okay. To answer that question, there's just one thing you have to I'll just give you one advice if you want to start as an animator. Number one, YouTube is your friend. Like, you can learn a lot of things from YouTube, trust me. You just need determination and consistency, and don't see it as a very arduous process, because like I said earlier, there's a lot of things now that speeds up the process of these things. The fact that I'm able to do that thing that you saw, only me, it just shows how much tools are available. Like, okay, for instance, now those animation, now I didn't animate those characters myself. I use what they call motion capture. I don't know if you know, you've seen movies, maybe you've seen making of movies where they wear these suits. Now they wear these suits where they just replicate the movement, because animation, especially realistic animation, can be very stressful to do, because having to animate somebody to actually behave like real world behavior, is just best to get a motion capture. I didn't have a motion capture suit. Initially, I used to use something. There's this Kinect. There's this thing from Xbox. There's this stuff they use in playing this dancing game on Xbox and stuff. I used to use that. There's this plugin and this software, and then something I got from this Russian guy that you just add it together and it works. But this particular one, I paid for this motion capture files. There was a site online where there were motion capture files already available. So I just selected the movements that I needed. Selected the movements that I needed. Although it used to be quite rough, there's still a lot of work you need to do to fine tune it. And also the clothing simulation is very stressful. Like, if you noticed, you saw the way the lady, when she, the Amina girl, this was a lot. This took a lot. Like, you can see the clothes whipping around.
I think the what's it called? The daylight, the time also was changing. It was morning, it was daylight, it was night.
Yes, that as well. And you see the HDRI helped. The HDRI, you can see this HDRI, you can see this feeling. I got that whole feeling of Hamatan. And then I did something called volumetrics. Volumetric lighting is a way to give foggy atmosphere, to make it feel like as if there are particles on the atmosphere. So there's a setting like that in 3D. Before, you have to do a lot of work to do that. But nowadays, just a few tweaks, a few settings, you know. So don't think of it as an amazing thing. Now, people are doing this stuff every time you get. So it's just to be serious, just go on YouTube and then use Blender. Blender is what I use. Blender is what I use for 3D. It's free and it's open source. A lot of people try to use some of those other professional softwares, and because they believe it's all about how professional it is, but it's not so, you know. And nowadays Blender is becoming, because it has been around since 1995. It has just been like the underdog software that people who can afford, because this professional software are actually very expensive. It's just that here in Nigeria, we have ways of getting expensive things for free. Even this ordinary Photoshop, people pay like thousands monthly for Photoshop, but an average Nigerian graphic designer just crack it, download it, crack it, using it. So 3D software goes as, some of them go as much as $1,200 per month that you need to pay to use them. So it's best to use Blender. Blender is free, and Blender is now at par because over the years they kept improving it and improving it. So just get Blender, just go on YouTube tutorials and stuff. Yeah.
So Franklin, 2 more questions. There's another one who came out from the chat as well. So Khadija said that she would love to watch this. So when are you releasing it? I don't think it's open to the public though. But
it's not a movie. It's not a movie. That's just it. That's what you saw there. That's all it is. It's just an advert to advertise the NFT collections that will be sold. That is it. But hopefully it's gonna be a movie. If we get more funding and stuff, we could actually expand it, because I mean we have awesome characters and the fight and the stuff. It could be crazy. Yeah.
All right, Khadija, sorry. Okay, so it's not a movie.
It is what it is. But don't worry, when it drops, you'll be able to see it. I think when it drops, I will tag ALITFEST and the video. Like now, I can't share this video now because it's not out yet.
All right. So the other question was, are there any preferred laptops?
Okay, yeah, that's another thing now. The story of laptop. Number one, don't just forget about Mac. A lot of people think Mac is all that, but Mac is not all that. When it comes to 3D, that's where you know the limitations of Mac. You need to get a Windows laptop. And yes, you may need a very expensive laptop to get stuff done.
Alienware?
Because, yeah, those kind of laptops, Alienware, those laptops that have high graphic card and stuff. But you can use a normal laptop when you're starting up. It's just to learn. When you're animating, you don't need all those graphic powers. Usually when you're rendering, that you need all those things. And also, there are services online that helps render, because rendering is what actually takes those processing power from your system. Is what requires processing power. And like me, for instance, even with the most expensive laptop, there is, okay, let me give you an example. Have you seen this movie, Shang-Chi? Have you seen Shang-Chi?
No.
The Disney Shang-Chi. Dragon water scene. I watched an interview with the guy who supervised the VFX in this movie. Okay. Okay. There was a scene where he was flying with the dragon. Yeah, the dragon was flying and entering the water. I think I don't think it's in this part right now. Okay. That particular scene now, the director, when he was asked how long it took to render it, he was like, if you had your regular system, if you had your regular best laptop available to you, it would take your laptop 60 years to render that scene.
Wow. Wow.
Some of this 3D stuff requires so much. So at the end of the day, as long as you're using laptop, you are still limited. You get. That is why there's something called render farm. Most of these film services, they use a service called render farm. A render farm is like a server farm where you have like hundreds of computers. Like you see them arranged like fridge. You've seen a picture of a server farm from one of all these movies before. Maybe all these movies where you have like a hacker trying to hack into one thing. Let me show you what a server farm looks like. this is an example of a server farm where you just see like a bunch of computers stacked together. So most times people who render 3D, they use, I think that's also what has been impeding the progress of rendering in Nigeria. The fact that nobody just have the budget for it yet. But nowadays, and again, if you are doing something very simple, like you're just doing a bunch of few characters, just a few environments, you don't need anything crazy. You get.
Yeah.
And there's also services online. Like I still use those services. It's a service online where I pay, and I think I have a subscription of like $50 a month, and I can render whatever I want to render using their system. So they give me like I gain access to their servers, and then I upload my work into the server, and then that server renders it. Something that would otherwise take my system. Like, okay, for instance, now that 3D stuff, although that's another thing I want to talk about now. There's also something called real-time technology. Real-time technology is also another thing that is quite new, and I think only Blender has it now. It uses a different technology that does not task your system in rendering. So that's also why you can use a normal system. You can start with a normal system. You can start with a regular system, just a normal Windows 10, 4 gig RAM, just a normal system for graphics, and you can just start. Yeah, the idea is just to start. You know, there was a time last year I finished a project with a very, very poor system because my system got stolen, and I was able to just get it done. You know, so sometimes there's still a way to get things done, even though. But then when you're talking about this dragon thing now, you see that dragon and fluid, there's something called fluid simulations. That's animating water. It's one of the hardest things, like water, because you're calculating all the molecules of the water, like the movement, the fluid. The computer is doing a lot of work trying to calculate all those motions, all those things. Yet, so those things they take a lot of time.
So what would you say about like Avatar? The one that had
Avatar.
Yes, Kitara and the water tribe.
Yes, Weta Digital. That's the name of the company that worked on Avatar. It's crazy. Those guys, just forget them. They're obviously rendering their work with a server farm, because I don't think any regular system, even if you buy a 3 million naira Alienware, you will still have issues if they give you their file to render. It will still be hanging. You know? So because it's very heavy, there's a lot of things. They go all out. Like for instance, let me give you an example of going all out. If I were to animate where I am right now, like there's a garden here, there are trees and stuff. If I were to animate it, the objects and the elements that are in the background, I will just use a photograph. I'll use a HDRI. I'll take a picture of it and then just place it in my 3D scene. I don't need to have that in my scene because it doesn't make any difference. But then a big studio like that will not want to cut corners that way. They will create those trees, individual trees. They will create all those trees and populate the scene realistically with those trees, even if the camera won't reach that far. So all those things are what makes your system to be stressed when you add so much elements, so many, plenty things on your system. It stresses your stuff. So I want to give an example. When we were talking about how time and how difficult it is, I wanted to give an example using Sonic. Like I was like, the Sonic movie, the Sonic Hedgehog movie, Sonic Hedgehog. When the movie came out initially, they released the trailer 3 months before the release of the movie, and people didn't react well to the trailer. They didn't like a character. They said it didn't look like the real Sonic, because they decided to make, since it's a live action movie, the VFX supervisor felt it would be more better to make it look more human. So it had human proportions. Let me see if I can find the image. Sonic. It's called Sonic. Sonic. No. Sonic. Sonic. Fashion. Okay. New and old trailer. Okay, yeah. This is, I think I found a video with like a left and right, side to side comparison. of it. Okay. This is the one they later used. So yes. This is the one they didn't like. See, it had human proportions. Can you see? See the knee. It's like an actual guy folding his knee. So people didn't like it. And this one was taller. See the face. You know, it felt creepy. It felt creepy. Let me see if I can find the right search term. Sonic old version. Sonic old version. Versus new. Okay, yeah, this is a good example. Yeah, very good example. You can see this image now. This is the old one, of which the cartoon Sonic looks like this because it's cartoon now. It's not real. Look at how the groin section is like very high up. The waist is, you know. But this one looked like as if it was a guy wearing a suit, you know.
Yeah.
So
I wanted to say that.
Yeah, people didn't like this one, even though the trailer has dropped, even though the date for the movie release was already out. So it took them just 3 months to do something that they first did for almost 2 years. It took them 3 months to fix it because the studio have money. They have a lot of money, and they're like, it would be a disaster if we release a movie that people don't like. So let's fix it. Now it would have been easy to just create a new 3D character and put it, but because of the compositing, because if, for instance, now a guy is talking to Sonic, because he's been told that this is the height of Sonic, this is how we're going to composite this guy. So your head have to, maybe they will even bring a small child on set that has the same height as Sonic, so that be looking at that child, so I to give you like the exact proportions of how the height of that person is, of the Sonic that will be composited, so that when they marry the footage later, it won't be out of place. So now, this new Sonic now it's now shorter than the former one. So it means all the scenes you shot, you have to reshoot those scenes again. Because this, if you put the new Sonic in the scene, it will be out of place, because these guys will not be looking at the eyes, like in scenes when they are facing each other and talking, where I have to look down because I'm talking to somewhere that is, and I'm now having to look up, or vice versa. You get what I'm talking about? So they were able to fix the issue in 3 months because of money. So money makes the world go round. If there's money, you can hire a ton of people. You can even hire Chinese people who are used to not sleeping or whatever. You can just get people, get it done. There's money, get it done. Fix this. People work all night and stuff. So, although Disney now, I don't think it's a Disney cartoon, but then Disney has been known for being cruel to their artists. So a lot of people are quitting. And again, Disney is just doing a lot today. And they bought a lot of franchise. Star Wars is now owned by Disney, you know, a lot of things, and there's a lot of shows coming out. This Disney Plus, just so many things coming out. So you just want to keep doing everything, but yet they are not being lenient and kind to their artists. So it's just it. So to answer your question, it all depends. If you have a lot of budget, if you have a lot of manpower, you can actually get stuff done fast. But if you don't, things may take forever to complete.
60 years. 60 years.
Yeah, it takes 60 years if you want to use a regular system. And sometimes I experience that issue because my software has a way, it has a way to calculate stuff. Yeah, for instance, now my system is quite fast, but if I wanted to render this like an animation, if I want to render this animation, it would take like maybe 3 seconds to render a frame. You get, so that's good enough. 3 seconds to render a frame, it's a good enough time. But then there are some scenes that are very large. Like there's this scene I did. There's this animation I did. It's a Bible-based thing. Let me play it. There's this vision of Ezekiel, yeah, where there's some angels, there's some things, there's some crazy things, and flying stuff. And yeah, if I wanted to render this with my system, it was taking 3 hours to render 1 frame. So my system was taking 3 hours to render just 1 frame. And then there's 24 frames in a second. So if there's 24 frames in a second, that means 3 hours per frame. So 3 hours times 24. That's already like 3 days to render 1 second. So it's going to take 3 days to render 1 second of that video, of this video. And then the video is made up of like, I think it's made up of about 1,200 frames. So just calculate it. It was going to take like a couple months or so with my system just going on and on and on and on. So that's
Oh, that's crazy.
That's crazy. But so in such cases, you use a render farm to just render. The reason why this is like this because there's a lot of things going on. This tornado, the light, the whirlwind on the scene, and the lightning and everything. There's just so many things on the scene and particle-based things like grasses. When you have things that are like almost infinity in number, like grasses, you have millions and millions of them. You keep digitally duplicating them and stuff. So all those things used to stress the computer when you want to render it. Yeah, so that's basically it. So is there any other questions before I move to animating animation? So I'll just show you animation.
No questions.
Okay. All right. Let's go to my software now. Let's go to this cube. I'm really liking this cube. So in animation, there's something we call keyframes. Keyframe is like the heartbeat of animation. Everything is all about keyframes. Keyframes basically just means telling the computer that there's something happening at this particular point in time. So as an animator, you don't have to think in time or seconds. You have to think in frames. Like I said, 24 frames, 24 images per second. So this is 200. This is my timeline. This section now is my timeline. You get. So you can see these numbers here: 20, 40, 30. These are just the frames, the number of the frames, all to 250. Let me change the end frame to 150. Yeah. So keyframes now, meaning, for instance, now if I select this cube and I add a keyframe, it's I to add keyframe, location and rotation. Sorry, let me go to the first frame. That's frame 0, frame 1 now. And I add this keyframe here. Then I go to frame 50 and I drag this cube to the right. And I add another keyframe. Now, if I go back to the beginning of the video and I play it, you see what happens? Hello? You're following, right?
Yeah, I am, but please play it again.
Okay. All right, let me start from the beginning. This is the cube. The cube is located at the center here. And this section now is the frames. These are the number of frames. You can see 1 up to 150. So as an animator, you have to think in frames, not seconds. Seconds, it's still going to be there, but then you have to think in the most fundamental unit of measurement of time, which is in frames. So if at frame 1 now, if I want to, I'll add a keyframe. Now I told you about keyframe. Keyframe is like the heartbeat of animations because it's basically how everything works. So if I add a keyframe now, I add a keyframe at this point, and I go to frame 50 now, for instance, 50. And then I move this cube to the right. You can see I'm dragging the cube to the right. And then I add another keyframe. What has happened now is that I told the computer that at frame 0, this cube should be in this location. At frame 50, it should be in that location. So it's already animated now. If I play the playhead, this is your playhead now. This is like your normal, playing playhead. It just lets you know where, at what point in time that you are. So if I click play now, you can see it moves to the right. Do you understand what I just did now?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. So basically, I just moved this from, and the same thing. I can do anything with it. I can do anything with this cube as long as I assign a keyframe. A keyframe is just basically you telling the computer that this should happen at this point. So now I can I can go to, let's say, frame 60 now. I can take the cube up this time, and this time I'll rotate it. I can rotate the cube like this, maybe 2 times. Then I add a keyframe. Now, if I go back and play everything, it moves to the right, then it rotates and goes up. You understand? So that's basically how animation works. It's as simple as that. It's basically just assigning keyframe to different situations, you know? Just make sure you assign. Yeah, hello?
Sorry, so apparently the person who asked that question, I think he had network problems, so he was logged off and he just logged back in.
Okay.
But I wanted to ask you something because I've already answered him on the chat, but
okay.
The name of the farms.
Farms, render farms, render
farms.
to render something, render farm.
Thank
There's
you.
this render farm that I use. Let me type the name now. It's called Render Streets. Render Streets. Is it org.com? I don't know. Render Streets. If you just Google it. Render Streets. Just Google render Streets. It's yeah, they are paid. You just have to, there are different subscriptions, you know. If you want them to render all your project within 1 hour, they can do it, but then you pay a lot of money. But the subscription I use is a $50 a month subscription. It has its limitations. You know, it still takes time to render, but it's reasonable. I mean, something that would have taken my system 3 months to render, if I get somebody that will render it for me in 24 or 48 hours, that's a good deal. You know, I'll just wait and get my rendered stuff back. So rendering is basically just converting all you've worked on into a video. That's the process of rendering. So the computer now converts everything. Like this cube now we just animated now. It's still in this software. It's not a video because I'm working on it. I'm able to navigate and everything. But if I wanted it to be a video that you can play and show somebody, I'll have to render it. But because this cube is not a big deal, there's nothing special here. If I render this animation now, it's not gonna take my system much time. Again, my system is quite powerful, so yeah.
All right. So what's the name of your system?
It's an ASAP Predator. It's an ASAP Predator Helios 300. Yeah. It's not the best system, but in, let's say in 2019, it was like the baddest thing in 2019. But right now, there are some systems that are better than it. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. It's a Predator Helios 300, and it's not just a normal Helios 300. It has a GTX 1080 graphic card, GTX 1080 graphic card with 8 dedicated.
So Khadija said you used to have a crush on your system.
Oh, Khadija. So Khadija, so you don't have a crush on my sister anymore. You have a new lover now. Is that it? That's a new lover, maybe a better one. So this is a GTX 1080 graph, and it has a 64 gig RAM. So the RAM is a 64 gig RAM, so it allows me to do a lot of things at once. So it's quite good, but then it's not all the rage anymore. Now there are more crazier systems. There's this particular ASA called what do you call it again? I've forgotten that's Predator. It's a 22-inch laptop. It's quite crazy. It uses two different graphic cards.
Yeah,
so
hence why Khadija dumped your system.
Is that?
I said hence why she dumped your system.
Yeah. So it's quite good. So that's basically how you animate this. So there are different there's what they call transforms. Transforms now is basically attributes that you can give to an object, animatable attributes. Like for instance, now one of the transforms is move. It's called location. So that's why anytime I press this I, when I'm about to add a keyframe, you see location and rotation. These are all animatable attributes. So if I press I now, location and rotation, meaning the computer should take note of this current location and this current rotation, and then it should add a keyframe for that. And so there's also scale. Now we've not done scale. Now let me animate a scale. So let's go to frame 100, and then this cube now, I will scale. Okay, first of all, I need to make sure the scale is animated here. Rotation scale. Let's go to frame 120. Then let me scale the cube very big now, and then location, rotation, and scale. So anytime I add a keyframe, are you seeing these yellow diamonds here? These yellow diamonds, it's just noting the keyframes here. Sure, are you able to see this yellow diamond?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, so now let me go back and play now. So it moves, sorry, the camera is here now. It spins, then it scales. That's what we did, from the beginning. I move it, then rotate it, then scale it. So these are all animatable attributes. That's basically, imagine now this process is just so easy. If it were stop motion now, I have to take a picture, then move it small, take another picture, move it small again, take another picture, move it small, take another picture. Then I'll now take it up, move it again, take picture, move it, then rotate it, take a picture, rotate it, take a picture. You can see how stressful it is. But with a computer now, you don't need to worry about interpolation. Interpolation means the distance between two keyframes. Like I used that example about my hands here and my hands on my head that time. The distance between the thing in between my hands being down here and it being on my head is the interpolation. So interpolation is distance between two keyframes. In stop motion, you may have to animate each interpolation frame by frame, but I don't need to do that now because the computer will just calculate it. The computer will calculate that, okay, since it was here before and now it's here, it needs to follow this road from here to here, and then the computer just fixes that. So that's basically the whole idea of animation. So the three different transforms you can do is the location transform, that's the moving, and rotation transform, and then scale. Those are the three main things you animate in anything, any single thing you are doing. You're either animating the rotation of it, the location of it, or the scale of it. The same with when you're animating somebody's hand. If I move the hand here, or I turn the hand here, that's rotation. If I move it here, it's location. Then if I expand the hand, of which human beings don't expand normally, but cartoons do. You can see some cartoons that have this kind of stretchy movement, you get. That's also another thing. That's, okay, M17, that's mad. Alienware M17. The reason why I don't like Alienware is because Alienware does not have a number pad. There's this number keys beside your laptop that Alienware does not have. They are beginning to copy Apple. Apple too does not have number pad. And I have a lot of shortcuts on my 3D application that I program to those number pads. So that's why I use them. This number pad that looks like a calculator by the right side of your keyboard. Most laptops don't have it anymore. Alienwares don't have it. I don't know why. But Alienware is mad. Like Alienware is probably even better than this my system because I mean it's like crazy. It's Dell. Dell makes Alienware and stuff. That's it. So now you've understood the whole concept of animation and how things are moved from location, rotation, and scale and everything. So I now want to show you, I mentioned earlier about sculpting. So I want to just show you a quick rundown of sculpting, how characters are sculpted. I'm not going to sculpt anything here, but I'm just going to show you something. Add modifiers. Okay. Okay, now, so let's go to sculpt mode so that you just see how characters are made. Now, there's what they call symmetry. Symmetry is another thing that helps sculpting to be easy for 3D artists. Symmetry is another thing that helps sculpting to be easy. In real life, if you wanted to sculpt somebody's face, if you sculpt one eye, you have to also sculpt the other eye and you have to make sure they look alike, or else you'll be sculpting a crazy person. But in a computer now, you have what they call mirror. So the mirror helps you to, okay, sorry. Okay. What's going on here? Okay. So, hello, are you following me? I want to be sure if you guys are following me.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. So you can see now if I do a bulge here, like maybe I think this eye socket, I'm using my mouse now to do this. You can see it's also happening on this side. And if I wanted to like maybe draw a nose now, you can see a nose. So you can see this is like me creating something now on 3D. So it helps. Being able to mirror stuff helps. You see? And there are different sculpting tools. There are different things I can do. I can pull out this place now, maybe to give it like some horns or something. Because this smooth. So this is just basically how sculpting works. So your characters, any 3D character you see went through this process of sculpting. Sculpt is very crazy, very stressful. But nowadays you don't need to do all that because, like I told you earlier about the AI stuff, there are ways to generate, there are software, there are plugins that generate characters, unique characters. There's stuff you can pay for, you know. There are character generators. There's some character generators where you have to just adjust. You have sliders where you're able to adjust preferences. Like for instance, you have a slider for nose, you make the nose larger or smaller, or so all those things help you to speed up your workflow. So basically that's what sculpting is. But traditionally characters have to be sculpted. Even some of the characters that I do, I actually have to sculpt them because sometimes when you're actually looking for something unique, or let's say you meet a client who wants a character to look like a specific person, now you can't use random character generators for that. You have to actually sculpt those characters in order to do that. So that's sculpting. Now let's go to rigging now. I use this character. I showed you this character earlier. I wanted to use it as a reference to show you the process of applying bones to characters now. Now you can see this character. These are the bones. If I turn this bone now, the hand moves. Are you seeing what's happening? If I move these bones, I move this hand, I can turn the head. Oh, sorry, that's creepy. Yeah. So I can turn the head.
I wanted to ask, sorry, while you're doing this, I just wanted to ask, like, this is only for 2Ds because for some it's not very important to add a bone.
As what?
Yes. This is only important for like 2Ds because for some like 3Ds you don't need to add bones. Yeah.
Yes, for 3D, it's only important for 3D adding bones. But nowadays, this helps to make the process. This bone ability helps to make the process less stressful, because traditionally you have to be drawing frames by frame. But having an ability to move your bones and then interpolate them from keyframe to keyframe saves time in drawing. Now, there are 2D softwares now that also have bones. They are 2D, but they have bones, so that the artists don't have to be drawing frame by frame anymore. Still the whole concept of technology and AI. The AI will just help you draw the in-between frames after it has seen your main frame, to help you draw the in-between frames using your bones. So 2D applications now have bones. 2D applications, some of these new ones, there's this application called Toon Boom. I think the ones they use in animating all this Family Guy and stuff. It's 2D, but they use bones because it helps to speed up the process. But traditionally, 2D don't use bones. 2D is just all about drawing traditionally. And of course, there are still people who still use traditional drawing, but some companies that do series, because it's very stressful to animate, to be drawing, especially when you are running a series. If it was just like a feature film, you can hire your artist and they'll just draw one time and go. But then a feature film where you have series of episodes by episodes and episodes, you need a speedy system. You need a system that will make things fast. So that's why we have Toon Boom. So yes, there are 2D applications that uses bone. So this rigging process is quite stressful because this character had already been rigged. I downloaded this character from somewhere. The deformations are intact. So when you move the hand, the muscle associated with the hand will also move, and the leg. So I'm using these now just to show you how the bones are set before we go into animation proper. Now I'm going to animate, I'm going to walk you through the process of animating this character. She's called Rain. Character was created for free by the Blender Foundation. The Blender Foundation is the guys that did the software. Like I said earlier, the software is open source, and over the years, even me, I've donated to them because what they are doing, they're really helping a lot of people. They're really helping to empower people because you don't need to spend expensive money paying all those expensive softwares, you know. So they deserve some money, they deserve donations because they're doing a lot. So this is just a test character I got from their site that I want to use for this animation. This character is called Rain. And this is a T-pose. That's what they call T. The term T-pose is something that is often used in animation. Is to show that, you know, the guy is standing in a T format. When you want to rig a character, you use a T-pose to rig a character because it's easy everywhere. The hands are open, you know, you can easily assign the bones and arrange it well. So this character has already been rigged, but you're not seeing the bones because the bones have been hidden. Instead, what they had available is the control rig. There's something called the control rig now. That is these things you are seeing now. These lines you are seeing. They help you to move the character well. You know, that's the use of the lines. The lines helps you to, instead of, because if you notice, when I wanted to animate this girl now, I had to make the bone to be visible on the front of the body, you know, and I have to start turning the bone. And there's something called inverse kinematics. It's another thing now in rigging. Inverse kinematics is a way to move, to intelligently move a limb. For instance, now if I wanted to raise this hand up now, you see I had to, sorry, Alt R, Alt R. As I want to move this hand now, I have to move it one by one. I have to bend this here. I have to carry this. I have to bend this here. Then I have to bend this up. Then I have to twist this. You can see what I'm doing now. But with this particular rig, this rig has something called inverse kinematics. Inverse kinematics means the bones move intelligently. If I grab this hand now, for instance, and I move the hand, you can see the elbows are bending accordingly. You already understand that this hand, if this hand wants to be in this position, this is the shape that the elbow will assume. If the hand wants to be in this position, this is the shape the elbow will assume. If the hand wants to be in this position, this is the shape the elbow will assume. So that's what inverse kinematics helps you to do. So it's a rigging process. And nowadays, I told you there are softwares that help you rig your character smoothly. You just have to pay a few money for it. Or there are even some free ones. It's just that the best things are always paid, just the way the world works. But it is what it is. So now we're going to be animating this character. We're going to be doing something called a walk cycle. A walk cycle simply means a cycle of walking. Like left, right, left, right, left, right. That's a walk cycle of this character. So that's what we are going to be doing with this character. But I downloaded an image reference to show effective walk cycle. Let me import the image reference. We're going to be using that image reference to do our walk cycle. Sorry, let me see. I think I saved it in this folder. Large icons. Not here. Show folder. Okay, this is it. Okay, JPG, okay. Okay, import image as planes. This. Sorry, just give me a few seconds to set something up.
It's totally fine. It's fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, it is, I guess. So I'm setting up this image of this work cycle now, so we can see it. Let me put this here. So this is the image of the work cycle. What it actually means is it's splitted the poses. Now that's another terminology animation that I forgot to mention. There's something called the pose. And pose is basically, we all know what a pose is. We take poses when we take pictures. So there's a lot of pose is just basically how you want to set your body rig. So there are different poses now for a work cycle, like one cycle of work. You can see this is the first pose, this is the second pose, this is the third pose, fourth pose. So this is like a guide now that we're going to follow to help us, because normally as animators always use real world things for reference. Something that animators do all the time. They use real world things for reference. And this is just another example of a reference. Only some 2D animation, because I don't know if you've noticed, if you've watched some of these 2D cartoons like Disney and everything, you've noticed that the movement, like for instance, Despicable Me or something, the movement is not like real human being movement. There's some cartoon movement where a character is moving and the head slowly follows by, and some kind of movement that is not so fluid, and that's a design language for cartoons. Human beings don't move that way. That is why it's difficult to use motion capture for cartoons. You have to animate them by hand, because that cartoon language is something that was created many years ago, and all cartoons obey it. If you watch Tom and Jerry and stuff, the way they move, the way the cartoons even walk, their strides, it's kind of different from how human beings move in real life. So that particular movement and stretches and stuff. And I like the fact that this particular rig that we are working with now, let me cancel this stuff. This particular rig that we're working with has that stretchy ability. Let me show you an example of the stretchiness. So see, if I drag it, can you see the way it stretch? Obviously, it's not a realistic thing, but it's possible because it's a cartoon character, and in the cartoon world, things don't obey physics, don't obey the laws of physics. Things just move anyhow. Bodies move anyhow and sway anyhow, and bubble anyhow. So that's just the way it is. So I imputed this image reference here so we can use it as a guide. So now we have to go, first of all, we'll go to the side view now. Now this guide is so good that it's a 25 frame guide. So first of all, let's set our timeline. I've showed you the timeline before. Let's set our timeline to 25 frames now. So we're going to be doing a work cycle for 25 frames. So now this all we need to do is to copy these poses. Now we copy the pose for frame 1, frame 2, frame 3. So this is frame 1 pose. Now this is 1. You can see 1 here. So we want to copy this this particular pose now. So first we grab the leg rig, the leg control, foot. See, it shows foot here, right foot. So grab the right foot, we move it forward a little bit. This. Okay, something. Sorry, let me. This is the issue.
Hello?
I'm back.
Welcome back, Franklin. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, my internet was acting up, I think. And I sorted it out. I switched another device. So we're good. So I don't know where you guys stopped. Where did I go off? I can't tell.
It was in the middle of her giving her in the animation part, and then
Have you seen how I moved this foot? Did you guys see how I moved the foot?
I'm not sure that we did.
Okay, but did you see how when I brought this image in?
Yes.
Okay. So this image is basically like the reference. Like I said, using this, we're trying to imitate this reference now so we can get a walk cycle. So what we have to do now is to imitate these poses now. So the first pose we're doing for frame 1. So there's also something I didn't cover earlier. There's something called this record button now here. If you click this record button, it's called auto keyframe. So instead of typing I and location, rotation, scale that I did earlier, this instead of doing this whole rotation, location, and scale thing, that auto keyframe stuff just recognizes any slight transformation that I apply to the rig. If I apply any transformation to the rig, like if I move something, it will just automatically add those diamonds there. I don't need to start saying add a keyframe here. Auto keyframe just recognizes any change in the transform, and then it automatically applies a keyframe to that spot. So that is it. So we are trying to imitate this. We're trying to imitate this first frame here. This first frame right here. So that's what we're doing. So I grabbed this right foot. I used the location. Remember we talked about location. That's why I brought it forward. Then you can see it's slightly tilted upwards. I go to this rotation gizmo. Sorry, there's this rotation gizmo here. And then I tilt it forward a little bit. Then I go to the foot control. I tilt the foot control as well. I tilt the foot control as well. Then this foot is backwards. So I grab, I move it backwards a bit, rotate it like this. Then like this, is quite subtle. This is just me making sure that it looks like what we're seeing in the image. now on this first frame. So that is it. And then the hands now, using the inverse kinematics that I mentioned earlier, I just use grab. There's also another way to transform something there's another way to transform something in the location parameter without having to use those arrows. Now you can just press G in my software. I just use G to grab stuff, and then I move my mouse to place them wherever I want. So it's easier than having to use those arrow keys. So now I just want to grab this hand, bring this hand down here, grab this hand, bring this hand down here, then rotate the hand, rotate this hand like this. So all these rotations are possible because this character is rigged. So I go back to the left side, and then what do I notice? I notice that this right arm is kind of curved, so I try to simulate that as well. Sorry. Grab this one, just slightly this way, and then move this arm this way. Yeah, I've done that. And then the left arm is kind of visible forward a little bit. So I'll try to do that as well. Bring the left hand. Yeah. Okay, hide it a little bit behind. Now, obviously, this character is different from what is being drawn. So we're gonna experience some slight differences. Just make it pronounced. So let's go back to the other side. So this is frame 1. We have this now. So the next step is we go to frame number 4. We have to replicate this pose in frame number 4. So in order to go to frame number 4, we just move this slider to 4. And then, I told you in animation, you think about time in terms of frames, not seconds. You think about frames, like this frame, that frame, So we go to this 4th frame now. So if we're doing 2D animations now, we have to draw every single frame before we get to frame 4. But now we just have to focus on some key frames. We have to focus on some key frames. So focusing on those key frames, the computer can now interpolate the in-between frames for us because it already knows here and it now knows here. So all it needs to do is just calculate the distance from here to here. So now we notice the head is quite lower this time. It's down a bit. It's a bit down because it's contact. The lady, she's in contact with the ground now. So we have to simulate that. So we have to grab this waist bone to bring her waist down. Yeah, like this. And then the foot bone to make it flat on the ground, like what we saw. Feet flat on the ground. And this one moving more further, more rotated, almost like it's about to leave. Let me bend her waist a bit forward. Then this hand goes to the back. This. And this hand goes to the front. It rotates. This hand goes to the front this way. Yeah. So let me save this. So it's good to save stuff. Anything can happen. So yeah. And that is frame number 4. So we can see what we did here. The right foot is in contact with the ground. The left foot is about to leap off the ground. And the hand, okay, let me bring this hand a little bit backwards. Too exaggerated. And ta-da, We have frame number 4. So what is next now? Frame number 7. Now this frame number 7 is something that they call passing. Now passing is when the leg pass the other leg. It is actually what it is, what it means. So now we have to do that. So to do the passing pose, we have to drag the foot. Oops, sorry. Selected the wrong bone. Drag the foot bone to the middle, sort of. The middle, sort of. Then this other foot goes this way. Okay, yeah, it pops out. It pops out. Pops out and rotate it this way. Oops, no, not that way. This way. This way. Now that bent foot needs to be straightened. The animation can be quite daunting, but you have to be passionate about it and you have to enjoy doing it because
Yeah, it's
it
a
takes
real
time.
labor of love. It's a real
Is
labor
that-
of love.
Yeah,
love.
exactly. Labor of love. You have to enjoy it. Oops, I just realized we made a mistake right now. Let's go back, undo. Okay, edit. Okay.
Hi, Franklin.
Yeah.
So another question just in.
Okay.
Colin says, funny question. Is the hair part of the rigging too? Like,
Is what?
it possible? Is the hair part of the rigging too?
Yes, the
Like-
hair. The hair has a rig. We'll talk about that later. We'll talk
Okay.
about that later. So, nobody knew the mistake. Nobody could tell me what the mistake we did was.
I was curious about it, but then I was like, okay, you're the professional.
I wish somebody would have recognized the mistake. Okay, the mistake is that I didn't go to frame 7 before changing the new transform. I didn't go to frame 7. After transforming frame 4, I still started doing the 7th pose on frame 4. So it will now overwrite what I did before on frame 4. So that's not what I wanted to do. So I needed to go to frame 7 to do the new passing pose. That was the issue. That was the error. But now I fixed that. Yeah, the hair has a rig. I'll show you. There are different kinds of hair systems. There's some hair that are rigged, and there's some hair that uses physics simulations. Those hair that uses physics simulations are quite more complex because it requires for the hair to move in respect to the head. So it's not complex. I mean, it's easy, but then it stresses the computer more when you have those kind of particle hair that can respond to physics. So because the hair is attached to the skull, if you move the skull, the hair also moves accordingly. So some of those, you can add some kind of soft body or cloth physics to the hair to make it move accordingly. But this particular hair is rigged and it has a control, but I didn't bring it out now because we're not currently working on that. When we get there, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Yeah, but it's a good question. Good stuff. I'm glad you noticed that because I mean, this looks very weird. Nobody's hair is like this, unless maybe if you are speeding on a power bike or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he was also like, yeah.
So let's do the contacts. That's the right foot down. We're trying to imitate this number 7 now, and this one goes higher. It pops out a little bit. Then the foot, I'm selecting the foot now, making the foot to go this way. And, okay. Flatness of the foot needs to, it needs to be this way. And I think this is a bit higher up, a little bit. And Number 7. What else in number 7? The hand. The hand is almost the same, but this time it's number 7 hand is kind of stretched down a little bit and just a little bit more down and a little bit rotated to the back. And this one is a little bit backwards. Let's see. Yeah. And there's also something that is not shown on this pose, but I think we need to add that for added. Okay, we'll do that later. Okay. Okay, we can see something is already happening right now. As I scrub through the timeline, something's already happening. See? Did you see that? We just had like just a few microseconds. It's from this frame to this frame and to this frame. So now we're going on the 10th frame now. So let's go to them. Remind me every time if I forget to move this, remind me. Frame 10 now. What is going on in frame 10? I don't understand what this is. The hand is blocking the, I can't tell if the hand is blocking the waist. Okay. I think this is the right leg. I think this is the right leg. Yeah, this is the right leg. So the right leg moves back a bit on this one. It moves back a bit on this one. Still in contact with the ground. And the left leg is, yeah, and I think the character is up this time. Yeah. You can see the head level is higher than the other ones. So that's why I moved it up to show that. And then this foot needs to be bent a bit and then up like this, like so. And the hand, this hand curves a bit like this, and this hand goes back. That is frame number 10. Now let's go to frame number 13. That is 13. So 13 is in between 12. It's not written. They didn't write every single frame, but you just know there's a line in between. In between 12 and 14 is 13. So
yeah, like initially I wanted to ask you about those, but also I think because some of us are using our phones, like when you have that page on, the place of the frames is a bit shorter, so we have to zoom in.
Oh, this timeline place.
Yes. So
it's
like
quite...
we can, yes, because
okay,
we have
let me move it. Let me move it up a little bit. I don't know. Let me reduce my window and see if it will help.
Okay.
Let me reduce the window. Let me optimize this for mobile. Okay, I don't know if this is a bit better. Is this better?
Okay.
Is this better?
Yes, it is. It's better now.
Okay. So, okay. So now at frame number 13, at frame number 13 now, the leg, the right leg is now kind of going towards the back now at frame number 13. And I think the character is a bit down. So let's bring it down. But not that one. Oops. Yeah, is that waist bone I was working with before? Okay. Yeah, this is it. Okay. It's a bit down. Leg kind of backwards, rotated a little bit. It's like a slight contact with the ground. Toes. Yeah. And this foot is straight. Yeah. Yeah, this is it. And okay, then the hands. The hands. I'm a little concerned about this, my hands. I'm not being really impressed with how I've been animating these hands, but let's see how it goes. Yeah. Do something. Yeah, sorry.
That's fine.
Okay, so okay. 13. Okay. If you notice anything that I'm not doing well, you can tell me.
I think in 13, the other hand, I think with the left is a bit back.
This hand?
The other one.
Okay, the other one. It needs to come forward a little bit more.
No, it needs to be, I think it needs to be backwards a bit.
Okay.
Like you can't really see it from the side.
Okay, you can't see it from the, okay, the 13. Okay, yeah, the 13 is backwards. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, like this, right?
Yes.
Yeah, 13, the hand is backward, and this one is
a bit backwards, a bit straight as well.
Yeah. Okay, and this finger, okay, let's look at how it looks. Let me see, I think naturally this should fall off like this, naturally.
Yeah.
We have to also account for the fact that these stick characters don't have like a huge butt like this girl. She has, she's thick, she's quite thick, so. So there's, it's blocking the hand, it's blocking us from being able to see the hand. So that is why we're having an issue. Yeah. So that's why we're having an issue. Yeah. So now frame 16, this is okay because also we also have to speed up. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah, because I was about to ask you, is it 60? Is it going to take 60 years again?
No, it's not going to take 60 years. It's not going to take 60 years, maybe 10 years, but not 60.
Wow.
I'm just kidding. 19. So now we're up to 19 frame 8. Why is it? Okay, 18, 19. Yeah. Why 19? Okay.
Aren't we supposed to, was skipping 16?
Yeah, 16. Yeah, I noticed something was wrong. 16. Yeah, 16. 16. Thank you for reminding me. I like that. Thank you. Because 16. So 16 now we are gonna have to turn this down. I think 16 it's a little bit down this time, 16. So we grab the waist bone and then we bring it down this time. And I think she's quite leaning forward a bit in 16, just a little bit. Leaning forward a bit in 16. Then the foot, foot is more pronounced.
More pronounced.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to point out that we've used to us 30 minutes already.
Oh wow, we have. Okay. You know what? I think we already have something here. You know, what we have now, we can play it and see how it works. And I'm sure you guys already understand the concept of how things are animated, basically. So let's play this and hope for the best. Let's see what we've done. Oh, you see that?
Yeah, like she's taking a casual walk.
Yeah. And then there's something else I felt we could have done when I I think when somebody moves, when your foot is in contact with the ground, I think the other side of the hip, I think it's supposed to go this way, right? Like this, yeah. I think, yeah. So you see, then when it's this one that is on the ground, we flip the hip this way, yeah. So, oh, I think it's quite too much, yeah. But you see how it is right now. This is basically how animation works, you get. And there's still some different process of fine-tuning and tweaking, you get. You have to go back another layer and tweak. You know, you notice some subtle movements that aren't quite okay. You know, you just correct them using the auto keyframe. It's all about using the transforms, the rotation, the location, and the scale to just animate things in respect to the time. So if you want to learn animation, there's so much you can do. Let me drop some links of some good YouTube tutorials.
As well, I wanted to ask, like, would it be possible to just share your Instagram pages?
Okay, yeah. My Instagram
so that
is
they can contact you for more information later.
Yes, sure. My Instagram is Frank. My Instagram is quite bland, but I will reply to messages. I hardly go on there. If you send me a message, I definitely will reply. Franklin Fache. That is my IG. This is my IG.
Fache, is that what's that from?
Actually, I don't know what it means. I think there's a French name pronounced Fache, but I think mine isn't French because I'm from Kogi State, and I think it means Fache. I think it's pronounced Fache, but there's actually a French name that has the same spelling that is pronounced Fache, but that's not mine. I actually don't know what it means.
Okay.
Yeah, I asked my dad. I think it was a long story. I couldn't understand what he was saying, but I like the name though. So yeah, so that's it. And that's my IG. Let me drop my email. My email is Franklin. Not Franklin at gmail.com. So this is my email. If you send me an email, obviously, or send me a DM on Instagram, and I will definitely show you some links, send you some tutorials that you can help yourself. All you need is just a computer and an internet connection and a passion, and you'll be well on your way. There's nothing crazy or magical about this thing, although it is quite magical though. I mean, seeing yourself create something from nothing, it's magical. But then what I mean is that it's not something that is so amazing that anybody can't do. You know, not everybody can do. Everybody can do this. Anybody can do this. And there's so much aspects to animation. That's another thing I want to point out now. Like I mentioned about compositors. There's some guys now, there are people who get paid a lot of money for just animation. Like what I just showed you now, that's all they do. They don't mess around with creating characters. They don't even know how to do it. All they do is just animate because it's a demand. There's a demand for animators, so they just animate. And there's some people who their job is texturing. That's like making this character. Okay, for instance, now this particular character, I've not even like showed you the rendered form of it. Rendered form of this character feels more what's the word now? Realistic. Can you see? This is how it looks like when it's rendered. Are you seeing that there's more detail and more colors and more lighting? Yeah, and there's a subsurface scattering. There's a slight subsurface. What I mean by subsurface scattering is I don't know if you've seen like for instance now, if you shine like a flashlight on your thumb, on your palm, maybe at night, you could see the way the light passes through your palm, you know, and it gives this subtle translucency. Yeah, that's this and sometimes you see some characters like there's like a camera, like light passing through the ear or something. There's also subsurface scattering. So all these things adds to realism. Let me Google subsurface scattering so that you just know what I mean. So these are just this is what I mean by subsurface scattering. You see it's very, very pronounced here. This is subsurface scattering. So that's subsurface scattering is actually on this model. It's very subtle, but you can't see it. It's very subtle in the ears. It allows for realism. So these are some of the things that is added to realism. And then someone talked about the hair now. So let me look for that rig. Sorry. Oops, view tools. Sorry, I'm not seeing that stuff again. Like, anyways, let me not waste time with that. There are also controls on the hair to move the hair, just like
yes.
Well, I can't seem to find them now. This rig, I'm not very familiar with this particular rig, but then that's basically it. And there's so many aspects to animation. You get like this 3D and lighting. There's some people, their job is just to do lighting. They are good with lighting. They understand the concept of light. They understand shadows and bounces and all that stuff. It helps them to they're able to do all those things professionally. So there's so much. Don't just think you just want to do everything. Like what I am what they call a 3D generalist, because I do everything. But 3D generalists are just people who just know a little bit of everything, and they're quite useful, especially for small studios or small projects. You need somebody who can do everything if you don't want to hire people to do different things, but then it's just a very stressful thing. I actually started this thing as a fun thing. I didn't actually see it as a career thing until some years back. I was fascinated with animation right from as a child, and then I was always, doing stuff. So that's basically it. So it's something you can do. Animation is fun, and especially the Nigerian movie industry, there's a huge demand for animators. Yeah, like if you can actually animate, like there's stuff you can do. Storytelling, there's so much you can do. And nowadays the storytelling process has become quite easy now. For me to be able to do that trailer I showed you by myself, it just shows how much you can do as an individual. I use a software called Marvelous Designer to do the clothes, and that is why the clothes feel so real. So it's still like 3D, it's like sewing in 3D. So in Marvelous Designer, you're actually sewing stuff, you actually see seams. You have to cut your patterns. If you're familiar with tailoring, you cut your patterns. Like this dress now, you can see this guy is wearing. I actually have to cut the patterns and sew them digitally together. So
wow,
that's let me quickly show you that if you guys are not in a hurry. Let me just quickly show you that Marvelous Designer and how it works. You just sew stuff, and it's quite amazing how there's so many tools available to you. So from that Marvelous Designer, I bring those clothes into my 3D application. And also you can also take advantage of free assets when doing stuff. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I have a confession. That camel you saw, I didn't make that camel myself. I downloaded it for free. I only textured it. I was so happy that I saw a free camel, I downloaded it for free and I textured it. So there's so many resources out there for you to start creating awesome stuff within a short time. If you can just be dedicated, if you can just be focused, there's so much resource out there. You don't have to, go through. Now the world moves very, very fast. Nobody likes slow things anymore. You get clients are always demanding impossible things, and this is something I did for. It's quite complex. Let me do something simple. Delete all this. So this is sorry for the nudity, but this is just a model. It's just, it is what it is. So this is I'm just gonna make a quick dress now. A quick square dress now. So this is one, this is this, and then I just duplicate this. Control C, Control V. Sorry. Control C, Control V. And then I take this to the back. And then I use my sewing. This is like a sewing tool. This is like a sewing machine. So I select this part. I sew it to this part. Sorry. Okay. You can see the sewing lines now. I don't know if you're able to see those lines.
I can.
You can see the lines. What those lines indicate is that these lines are the thread. It just tells you that this is going to sew this to this. So if I click simulate now, you see it's sew. Okay, now I think it was a bit too loosed. So let me take it up. Then take this one back. Okay.
Oh, it fits.
Bring it up. Okay. So let me something easily I can do to fix this issue is to reduce the length of this so it's tighter. Reduce the length, then sew it. Okay. Then reduce the length of this one as well. Okay. So, okay. So you can see, simple and short. So this is actually how, so it's all about joining the patterns. You know, if you're a tailor, you cut patterns and then you join them together and then you have your clothes. And if you actually have animation, this software actually allows you to animate your clothes. Like it helps you to animate your character and have the clothes respond to the movement. Like this particular character, she's sitting crossing her leg. It's the character that I used for that beach girl and NFT you saw earlier. So, okay, there's no animation on this right now. There's no animation on this, but let me see if I can. It's called. Avatar. Avatars. Anyways, it is what it is. Let me not go too deep into this. Basically, you understand what's going on. So that's basically it, I guess. Hello? Hello?
Hello, sorry, I muted myself. Sorry. Yes, here.
Okay, yeah, it's okay. So that is basically it for animations. So
right, I can tell you how delighted and how interesting the workshop was. It was really, really so much fun. And it really, really was animation 101 for dummies. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
It was an honor to be here as well. You know,
and I hope you're enjoying the milk shop's menu. They have lots of fun.
Yeah, they are. The place is quite chill and cool. I like it. And I've been the only one here since, so I think I also like that.
All right then. Thank you so much once again, Franklin, and we really, really enjoyed this.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Caris T. Thank you, Tosin, Khadija, Timitayo, Abigail Ojo, Grace Anaja, Alheri Didi, Osinuga, Colin Undel, and Ujenu. So Joy, you're here. I didn't know.
I think Colin just asked again for the name of the software.
Okay, Blender. The name of the software that I use, it's Blender. It's okay. Let me give you the site to download it. Blender.org. It's for free. You download it there. Blender.org. Yeah.
It was
Marvelous Designer. But Marvelous Designer, you have to pay for it. Marvelous Designer, but I'm not going to tell you on this broadcast how to get it legally, but that's up to you.
All
But
right.
you have to pay for my designer.
It was so much fun moderating this workshop, and I'm Ada, hosting on behalf of ALITFEST. Thank you so much once again, Franklin.
Thank you so much for having me as well. Thank you, everyone. It was fun. It was a privilege.
All right, then. Bye,
I had
guys.
fun as well.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone. Goodbye, everyone.